Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our May 12th Town Board meeting. If you could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of prior minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second for April 11th, 2014?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Accepting the minutes for the regular town board meeting of April 28th, 2004?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Thank you very much. We have an announcement. We actually have a presentation tonight, a heartfelt thank you to David Baldorf, who served for 30 years as our chair, well, most recently as our chair for the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's a little late in coming, but it's been a long winter. David's been traveling. David, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for coming. This is on behalf of this town board and the former town, all the town boards, I'll be just go out and say. And it's on behalf of a grateful community. The Rhinebeck Town Board extends its sincere gratitude to you for your dedicated and thoughtful service to the town as the chair to the Zoning Board of Appeals for 30 years. And that ended last year. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I really had a good run those 30 years, and what I was thinking back over the time, one of the first things we dealt with when I was on the board was the gardens. And 30 years later, it's still in process.
Move quickly in local government. I had the pleasure of serving with you on a zoning review group, and that's how I got to know you. And you were very thoughtful and kind and thorough, and so I was happy to be able to work with you in that capacity. I know you have a lot of friends and supporters here who also want to thank you.
Well, thank you,
You're welcome,
Elizabeth,
and
and
thank you for coming.
thanks to the board. I am leaving the board in very good hands. I enjoyed working with all these folks, and they're going to continue the good work.
Yes, I hope so. Would anybody like to speak further, or Michael? Michael West is our current chair.
Sure, I'm the new chairman, and this guy, I've been on the board with him for 20-some years. He is such a professional and such a dedicated, not just on the Zoning Board of Appeals, but he's involved in so many things around the town, and he's the type of person we need in this town, who's willing to give up his time to make things better for all of us, and he's a great role model. I just hope I can fill his shoes. He's the best. Really, thank you.
I'm Scott Bergen. I'm the vice chair. I've taken Michael's spot now that he's taken David's. And I want to voice the same thing that Michael said, and that is David is a great example of what a good citizen should be, what a trusted servant of the people should be. He's been tireless in his efforts with the town. I've had the pleasure of being with him for 11 years and watching this man work. And he runs a great ship as far as the Zoning Board of Appeals goes. I know he was involved in the comprehensive review of the zoning and many other things. And it's not the easiest thing to run the Zoning Board of Appeals, but he did it with respect to the applicants and with grace. Because a lot of times when people come to the zoning board, they're not happy. They've been denied something. And David always was respectful to the folks, let them say their piece, and just was a wonderful example of, how a board should be run and, what a public servant should be. I'm going to miss his experience, his knowledge of the law, and mostly, I'm going to miss you and your friendship. Although you're going to be around, right?
I'll be around.
He's going to come back to heckle. So anyway, I wish you the best in all you do, and thanks for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. I think a race to the microphone.
I've had the pleasure of working with Dave on a number of different projects. The Planning Board and the ZBA work very closely together. They have to. The ZBA actually makes the zoning law work for the people, the individuals in the community. Zoning laws are written for general classes, general groups. The ZBA makes it work for individuals, and no one did it better than Dave Baldoff. I worked with him on a zoning review committee. I worked with him with Burger Hill. Every time working with Dave has been nothing but a thrill and a joy. He's one of the kindest, nicest, most generous people I've ever known in my life. I miss him on the ZBA. Michael's a good stand-in for him, but we all miss Dave, and the community would not be what it is today without Dave Baldoff. We are eternally grateful to him. And I thank you.
I also got to know Dave as the lawyer for the Zoning Board of Appeals and also as fellow members of the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee. I want to echo what everybody else has said. It's so heartwarming in a way to know that so many people recognize the same qualities. Beyond all the things that Dave did for the community, the biggest impression that he always made on me was the quiet competence, dignity, and respect that he brought to everything that he did. We were, as Scott said, the ZBA is not always a happy place. The zoning law and comprehensive plan review wasn't always a happy place. Dave always treated everyone with respect and dignity, and at a time in our society when those qualities seem to be sometimes in short supply, it was really wonderful to see, and he was a wonderful face for the government of Rhinebeck. Dave, thank you for all of that.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, David, and we'll look forward to seeing you around town.
Thank you very much for this recognition.
It's our pleasure, a small token.
You had Marion here to thank her for all those nights alone.
Thanks.
I just had one question. Is Mr. West and Mr. Bergen agreeing to serve collectively for 30 years each, or?
It's a concurrent or?
On the advice of myself.
David made it look easy. You all do, so thank you. I'm going to continue with the meeting, and since we have our land use attorney and chair of the planning board here, and I'm going to need help with this resolution, I'd like to go out of order and take resolution number 9, which is 2014-236, approving infrastructure and improvement security agreement. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
John, would you like to briefly take us through this and explain it to the board and the public?
Yes.
Thank you.
CSI is the name of an applicant in front of the planning board. They have a site plan and special use permit to construct a commercial building out on Route 9G, out toward the bridge approach. They received final conditional site plan approval from the planning board back in 2012, and they were given a list of conditions that had to be complied with before the planning board chairman would be authorized to sign the final map. Their deadline for getting everything done is May 19th of 2014, which is a little bit more than a week away. One of the conditions that they need to comply with is to post a performance guarantee for the construction of the infrastructure in connection with the project. And the approval that the planning board issued requires that to be posted prior to the time that the chairman signs the map. The applicant has been experiencing difficulty in getting the performance guarantee, and it has not been produced as of yet. Their new lawyer has been in touch with Warren Raplansky and I quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. They still haven't received, they still haven't gotten the guarantee, but they have until the 19th to produce it. In order to have you ready or have the procedures ready in case they are able to get the performance guarantee fulfilled, you need to approve the amount of the guarantee and also the form of the guarantee. There's a security agreement in front of you, which is the agreement between the town and the applicant about posting the guarantee and how it's going to be administered. And there's also a cash guarantee. Both of those were drawn up by Warren Raplansky. They've been commented on by me and Michael and also by the lawyer for the applicant. They're in final form in front of you today. The idea is that you would approve these this evening. They'll be in place, and if the applicant is able between now and May 19th to comply with what's required and post the guarantee in accordance with the requirements, then and also comply with the other conditions, which I believe they still have yet to comply with, submitting their final maps, et cetera. But they'll technically then it would be in position for the planning board chairman to sign the final map on the 19th.
Thank you. Just some clarification. It's a time deadline issue. We don't meet again before the planning board does, and that is this applicant's last chance to submit everything. They've had every extension they can. So what we're asking tonight is for the town board to allow me to sign this if the money and other requirements are met before the planning board's meeting next Monday. And I think we have a deadline of 4 p.m. next Monday.
4 p.m. on the Friday before, I think.
Is it the Friday before?
Say the 15th or the 19th?
It's the 19th.
Oh, the 19th, okay.
That is-
that was negotiated between Warren and the
Yeah,
applicants.
it's the Monday, 4 p.m. on the Monday. So is there any further discussion or any questions?
John, I don't know if it's too late to change any of the wording, but paragraph 5 says that if the obligor fails to complete said improvements within the designated 3-year period, the town board, with the approval of the planning board, may extend the time performance. If we could add, may extend the time for performance, but shall not be obligated to do so, or some kind of thing that...
Emphasizing that it's a discretionary act.
Yeah, to make it clear that this is discretionary after 3 years.
Yes, you can change these documents tonight if that's...
I don't know.
Sorry, which paragraph is that?
Paragraph 5.
Which document is that?
This is the first infrastructure and improvement security agreement.
First page, last paragraph.
It's page 4.
That's the second document.
Town board with the approval of town may extend time performance.
John, do you see that change? The town board may?
Yeah,
I
I'll
was
work
trying to
with
find it. I only have a red line copy
I'll work
of this.
with John as to where we put that in. But I guess this is on Warren's machine, so he...
Yeah, but you can send it to me if that's easiest, and I'll just send it along
Okay.
to him.
I have it.
Oh, okay, you have the document. So
I think
can
we
change
have
it.
to make a motion to resolve this resolution, and we
Yeah.
have to state the language now in order to vote
Well,
on it.
You have substantially the same form clause in the resolution.
Close enough?
Yeah, if you say...
Does anybody want to make a motion to
Yeah, I may move that we approve it with the change to be made, making paragraph 5 of the infrastructure and improvement security agreement, making it clear that any extension is a discretionary act.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So back to the motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for staying and one quick piece of business, and then we have a presentation. May 26th is Memorial Day. That's our regularly scheduled evening for town board meetings. The 27th is when we moved it to. That is Grievance Day, so we don't have use of the town hall. Town hall is not available to us that week with Garden Club, Court, and another applicant. And the following week, we have Legion, ZBA, and Court. So unless, and then it's followed by our town board meeting. So I'm thinking that we should not reschedule since we don't have an evening, and if vouchers need to be approved, I've spoken to Shelley, we can schedule a special meeting during the day to approve vouchers or take care of any other business, and we'll leave that discretionary and decide at some point the week of the 26th. Does that sound okay?
Sure.
I
Anybody
guess
else?
it always troubles me when we don't meet 2 meetings a month, that there's just a lot of work I see ahead. There's no time that week that...
No, it's booked in the evenings, the week of the 26th with Memorial Day, and it's booked the following week except for Friday, but we have our town board meeting the Monday, so we'd be meeting on Friday the 6th and Monday the 9th.
No other venue that we can go to? We used to have a meeting at the Rhine Cliff Firehouse, Morton Library.
I'm proposing that we, just go with a special meeting as needed. Anybody else have any suggestions?
I'm fine canceling.
I didn't hear what he said.
He's fine canceling and holding over until the 9th.
And if we need a meeting, we'll schedule one.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Jen Metzger from the town.
Can I make an announcement?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, more announcements.
Sorry, we've had some issues at the dog park or not at the dog park, at the Thompson Mazzarella Park, where dogs have been off leash and they've charged other people and other dogs. And I just want to remind the public that if you're there with your dog, you must keep the dog on a leash the entire time. That's what the sign says. You must clean up after the dog. If this continues, then the town board will probably have to take other action.
The dogs have to be on their leash in the park? It's
Yes.
not a run-free? Oh.
At Thompson Mazzarella Park.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the
Yeah,
dog
no.
park. Okay, yes, I missed that. Thank you. I have, we'll come back to committee reports and liaison reports, and I have an update for some insurance stuff, unless anybody has other announcements. Open Book is happening today, tomorrow. Is it Friday and Saturday? It's posted on our website, and then Grievance Day, as I just announced, will be on the 27th. So if anybody wants to come in and see the assessors before Grievance Day, please do.
Elizabeth, let me make an announcement for the Affordable Housing, Open Space and Affordable Housing Committee. We do need members to serve on that committee. I believe it's a very good committee, and there will be, for the first time, real funds available, assuming a resolution that we pass tonight. So if anybody out there in the audience or at home is interested in affordable housing and trying to shape a program for Rhinebeck for affordable housing, which was one of the important goals of our comprehensive plan and in our zoning law, please let our town clerk know if you're willing to volunteer and work on this important committee.
Thanks, Joe. I found an application in the files from late last fall, early in the winter, November. I'm going to pass it on to you. It's someone who has a background in planning and housing development. How many people are on the committee? Or what does your resolution or your charter allow? Is it a 9-person committee?
I don't know, but we're not anywhere near 9.
Okay, so you need some more people. Okay. I'm now going to introduce Jen Metzger of Citizens for Local Power. I was going to say something else for a minute, and I know it wasn't correct, also from the town of Rosendale. Thanks for coming back. Come on up. Come on up, both of you. If you wouldn't mind just stating your name for...
Sure. Jen Metzger, town... This isn't on, I don't think, but you all can hear. Jen Metzger from Citizens for Local Power.
And I'm Dawn Miola, also from Citizens for Local Power.
And thanks so much for having us back this month. We just want to speak with you for a few minutes about a bill before the state legislature that will enable community choice aggregation in New York State. And we hope that the board will consider providing a letter of support for that bill. As the supervisor mentioned, I'm on the town board in Rosendale, and we this week are going to be passing a resolution to support the bill. The bill was introduced by Assembly Member Kevin Cahill. Among its co-sponsors are your Assembly Member Dee Dee Barrett.
Kevin's our assembly person, yes.
Oh, Kevin's yours too. Oh, that's right. Okay. Dee Dee Barrett must be
all
next.
around us.
Yes, all around you. Okay, all right. Well, okay. And in the Senate, it's Senator Kevin Parker. But I just want to, before I explain what it is, give a little context for community choice aggregation. When it comes to our energy supply, we don't really have any control over where that energy comes from. Most of us pay Central Hudson to source our energy for us. Many people are also signing up with ESCOs, energy supply companies, who play that role for us as well, sourcing that power. Much of that electricity comes from fossil fuels and increasingly from natural gas. And we've all seen the, and fresh in our minds are the economic consequences of that. There's a lot of volatility in natural gas prices as we experienced this past winter, and again, we will again this summer, because it's supposed to be a very hot summer. And of course, then there are environmental costs as well to fossil fuels. We know that to effectively address both our economic vulnerability to heavy reliance on fossil fuels and also environmental vulnerability, we need to diversify our energy portfolio and rely more on renewable sources of power and reduce our demand for energy. But the problem is at the local level, we don't have all the tools that we need to do that. And community choice aggregation is a really has proven an effective tool in other parts of the country for helping local communities gain greater control over energy decision making. Basically, what community choice aggregation is a municipality or a group of municipalities can aggregate the load, the energy load of ratepayers within their boundaries and negotiate contracts with energy suppliers. Often it's not mandatory. This is a choice model, so people can choose not to be in a CCA, to stick with the utility or an ESCO if they choose. But in other places in the country, it's there's community choice aggregation in 6 states. It's been around for 20 years. And most people stay with a CCA because of the benefits they provide. They are able to provide power at lower cost, or at least competitively with the utility, and they are able to diversify that power and have a more diverse portfolio, a portfolio with more renewable power. They're able to do this because they are leveraging a much larger load than any of us can individually, and get benefits that way. They also aren't looking to make a profit for their shareholders, so they can charge less. CCAs in turn are investing locally in their economies, in their energy economies. In California, they are investing directly in local generation, increasing jobs and decreasing energy costs. In Massachusetts, they oversee, Massachusetts had the first CCA law in 1997, and they oversee energy efficiency programs, and again, increasing local employment opportunities while lowering energy costs. So this would be an exciting and very valuable tool in New York State. It's sort of all the state, it actually really makes sense in New York because we have municipal home rule here, but we don't have the tools to really live municipal home rule in the energy realm. So basically, this enabling legislation will allow municipalities to explore and choose CCAs if they would like. Let's see. See, that's about.
I was just going to say over 1,000 municipalities are already using this tool very successfully. And I told Jen I would be kind of more of a visual aid, my pants representing microgrids, and my top, the possible blackouts which I would wish to avoid through greater resilience. So we developed the bill with the man who...
I think you have to speak into the microphone.
We developed the bill who is the man who is the founder of CCAs, so we think that we have a really strong bill with a good chance of passing, so we hope that you will support us.
You said 1,000 municipalities in the country.
Yeah.
Great. Well, you're here tonight, and we have a resolution, so I'm going to ask the board to, vote on it. And did you also want to talk to us about another quick initiative?
Yes, this is just really briefly. I just wanted to let you know that NYSERDA has created a unified solar permit. This is for systems that are 12 kilowatts or less, rooftop systems, that they are encouraging municipalities statewide to adopt, and they are providing municipalities with a $2,500 incentive just to adopt it. And the reason they're encouraging this is because in New York State, we have like 1,000+ municipalities that all have different regulations and different permitting requirements. And this is a barrier to expanding solar in the state, and it slows it down. An installer has to educate him or herself on the permitting requirements for each municipality, and this is a cost factor. We were actually in Rosendale adopting this permit this week. Red Hook, I guess, the town of Red Hook has just recently adopted it, and the hope is that, municipalities across the state will.
So the state will give us $2,500 for adopting this
Yes.
ease of permitting for PV?
Yes.
Is it only rooftop, or can it be
It's only rooftop,
Oh,
and
that's too
they're
bad.
developing another.
Maybe we can get another
They're
$2,500 when they
developing
have
permitting
another.
process for larger systems.
But I mean, some roofs can't support PV, so you have to put,
Right, the ground-mounted system.
Which won't-
right,
they're
no,
not going
and
to.
for now, you have to rely on your, whatever local provisions you have in place. But we know in Rosendale, this is a hole in our code. I don't know if you already have code that covers very large systems, but we don't. But it's something that municipalities are going to have to consider as solar farms become.
In Massachusetts, I understand they have a solar farm, a community solar farm law. Are we able to do that in
They do.
New York?
They adopted one at the state level for systems that are like 250 kilowatts up. Like
No, what
really
I'm thinking of is, I heard about it on the radio a couple of months ago. The community sets aside land, and then people can individually purchase solar panels and get the benefit from them as if they were on their roof, even though they're in the community space.
We can't do this in New York State. You can't right now. You could do that through community choice aggregation. This is like the kind of thing you can do, is you can actually have community solar because you're doing billing and can do it through that.
But individuals
You
wouldn't
could
be able to
also
own.
do it through, we also don't have in New York virtual net metering yet, or community net metering, which would allow, which would really expand solar in the state, because only about a quarter of the roofs in the country are positioned right for solar. And then you have many renters, for instance, who can't take advantage of it. So having virtual net metering here, and hopefully community choice aggregation will allow that to happen.
Thank you. Well, we'll revisit the solar on another day, but questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you lost me on the second part about this $2,500.
Yes.
What is that?
So it's part of the Cleaner, Greener Communities NYSERDA funding, and most of that, all of that money except for the solar permitting has to be applied for in June. But for the solar permitting, it's rolling, and it goes until September. So you do have to, this incentive runs out in September. You would have to take advantage of it before then, but it's first come, first serve until the money runs out.
And it's an incentive to do what?
It's an incentive to adopt a unified solar permit that NYSERDA has developed a model permit that streamlines the process. So it requires for installations that meet the requirements. It has to be rooftop, it has to be less than
12.
12 or under, and there are a couple of other things. But if it meets the conditions, then you can apply for it. It's an expedited permit. You can get your permit within 7 to 14 days, and they've already vetted the permitting.
From NYSERDA? Or
No.
permit
It would be,
from our
we would
planning
adopt,
board?
we would adopt it for the town. It would be part of our
It would
code.
be your code, part of
So
your
we
building
would
code.
replace what we have in our zoning code with this?
Building code for solar. Only for, I don't know if you have code for solar, but if you do, then yes, it would do that.
We have the information, and I'll make sure you get it in your boxes tomorrow, and it's something we can look at if it
Right, I
works
think
for
we got to
us.
look at it, and we
Yeah.
got to look at the first thing as to whether
Yeah.
we want to support something which I certainly haven't seen.
Right. I just want to just emphasize that this is just enabling legislation and not required for communities. But this is for community choice aggregation, but it expands the toolbox for communities that are interested.
I'll get it into the town board members' boxes and the CAB and the planning board and zoning board and our code enforcement officer, and we'll get some feedback. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Thanks for coming back.
We'll chat about that at the CAB meeting on Thursday.
Thanks. So out of order here, Jen has brought us resolution tab number 8, 2014-235. It's approving a letter in support of our New York State legislator A8883 and S7087 on community choice aggregation. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, what is it?
It's just the presentation we got. It's a letter in support of legislation that was brought forth by our state representative, Kevin Cahill, to form a community aggregate, which is a different type of metering or buying of energy. It would give community members more choice. There are two bills in the state.
My own reaction is I would like to see the legislation before I'm asked to vote on something. This is somewhat irresponsible, I think, to vote on something where we haven't seen what we're supporting.
Well, I've read it. I forwarded it to everybody. If you'd like to table it, we can, but
Yeah, I think we should, and I'd like to see a copy. This is a proposed bill in the legislature.
I believe did we share that with you on this one?
Yes.
Okay, because we can share it again. But
yes. You can't speak from the audience. It's better to come to the microphone. Is there any further discussion? Do people want to table this? I've read it. I'm not irresponsibly proposing this.
Okay, no,
I'm in
but-
favor of it. I've read it. It's in the legislator. I think it's good for our citizens and good for our community. So it's been distributed. We could certainly table it if people haven't had a chance to read it. We have an open motion.
Yeah, I would table it. I have not read it.
Is there a motion to table this?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Against.
I read it too.
The motion to table passes, so we will, doesn't it, 2-2?
It fails.
Oh, it fails. Oh, well, thank you. The motion to table fails, so the motion before us now is to vote on the resolution for community choice aggregate. All in,
No, I voted with you.
yes,
Vote again.
now you're voting to
Pass it. because
Pass it.
2-2. So,
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against?
aye.
It does not pass, so we will bring it up again at the next meeting when the town board members have had a chance to review it. John, could you just make a note to reintroduce this at the next meeting? So I think the intention here is good. I'd like to give the board members a chance to study it further. And I certainly support it. I think it's healthy for our constituents who are buying electricity through. Did you have another comment?
just that.
If you could approach, yeah.
I just wanted to mention that the assembly session ends next month, so it is timely.
When does the assembly session end?
Toward the end of June.
All right, we have a meeting, unless we have a special meeting, we do have another meeting on June 9th, so it would be on that agenda, and since Kevin's our representative, we would be able to get it to him quickly.
Okay, great.
So thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming
Do we
back.
have copies of the
It's all
proposed
here.
legislation?
Yes.
You should-
Yes, it's all here. It's here in your box.
The actual law.
The actual law, yes.
We have
leave a
hard
copy
copies
for
with
you?
Yeah, it would help.
Why don't you give it to, it's actually in your book, but, John, did you include it in the book?
No, it's not in the book.
It's not,
Okay. Okay, thank you. We'll go, thanks for coming, Jen.
Thanks.
Committee reports, liaison reports for the public. I'd just like to state that Councilperson Elaine Fernandez had an unforeseen personal family emergency, so she was unable to attend. We have a couple of things that she was going to bring us through that we might table, but we'll deal with those when we come to them. Any committee reports or liaison reports from anybody? Alan, what's happening with our tech?
Well, I just spoke to Mr. Jeffries this afternoon. The equipment's on order. It should all be here by the end of the month, and we should go into the first installations on first week of June.
First week of June? Okay, great. And I know Municity's ticking along.
Right.
Paula went to the big meeting in Hyde Park, and we don't need to send our employees and our enforcement officers or our clerks, because they will be coming here to train us.
The other question was how many...
Tablets?
They want us to order 4 tablets, and I don't think we need 4. You didn't think we needed them. I walked around Town Hall this afternoon, and I think 2 will be adequate. I asked the representative from Verizon whether we'd still get the same price if we decided we needed a 3rd one later, and he hasn't responded yet, but I think 2 is the right
Well, we'd
number.
be paying an extra monthly charge on 2 tablets, so I think if we have a building inspector, code enforcement officer, and if an assessor goes out once in a while, we can certainly share.
And they don't need the tablets to work inside of Town Hall. so.
Right, they can, just for a field. I think that's a good catch, so thank you.
Alan, do you think it's worthwhile to check with our code enforcement officer as to whether they think they need it? I know building inspector probably needs it, but I don't know if a code enforcement officer is...
Well, the assessors said they would use it occasionally.
okay.
So, I mean, having one,
Okay, for
having
the
a spare
assessors.
is not a bad idea.
Great.
And the money we're saving basically is $40 a month each for the data plan.
$1,000 a year.
Yeah. So,
Any other committee or liaison reports?
the Historical Committee's having a reenactment of the dedication of the post office on Saturday at 4 o'clock. There will be a person impersonating FDR and reading his speech, and I'm going to be going as the Prince of Denmark,
Are you,
who was there 75 years ago.
what are you going to wear?
I'm not sure yet, but my wife will be the princess.
That's wonderful.
I thought it was Hamlet, the prince of...
Well, yeah.
Way before the post office.
Turns out he
yeah.
was an admiral in the Danish Navy, so I have to find an admiral's uniform somewhere. Anyway, that's it.
Okay, anybody else?
Rec is ramping up for the summer. They had the registration this weekend.
Yep.
The online is all set to go. The hiring notices are out, or the letters of confirmation, so we're going.
Great.
Bring it on, summer. Joe, anything?
No.
Okay. On to business, tab number 1, Resolution 2014-228, approving our preliminary accounts payable abstracts 5, vouchers 501 through 591, 61 checks totaling $70,146.78. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Resolution 2014-229 for our capital projects abstracts. May I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Resolution 2014-230, appointment to the Open Space Affordable Housing Committee. Dodd Crane, a former town board member, has come forth and has asked or told us he's willing to serve. May I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Thank you very much, Dodd. So there's one, Joe. Resolution 2014-231, establishing a trust fund, releasing units at the Garden, and allocating funds related to workforce housing. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We had tabled this from our last meeting. The Gardens units that were set aside for workforce housing are not being sold within the program. The sponsor has asked for them back, and we've negotiated, Joe's negotiated a fee for that, so we're asking that you allow me to sign the release, return the units that we reserved. We still have some money. We're asking to set up a trust account for this money to be allocated for affordable housing.
Right, and the first 25,000 will go into the Parkland Fund.
Everybody?
Did Warren review the trust fund?
No, the trust is just what Shelley said, that we call it a trust so we can put it into our trust and agency account. It's not a formal trust agreement.
It's
It's just a
bookkeeping procedure. We learned about that at budget school this week, too, so.
So it's like Parklands then?
Yes. It's dedicated to a purpose.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Resolution 2014-232, approving town hall use for the blood drive. May I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
What blood types? Never mind.
Well, we're taking all, any.
We're not discriminating.
I can't, well, you do actually. Some people can't. I had ehrlichiosis, so I can't, they won't take it. They won't take my blood. Any further discussion?
They won't take mine either, by the way.
It's you,
They won't take
Joe.
mine either, so.
So we should all vote for
Right.
All right,
so
well,
this speaks well of our town board. None
Take it
us
all
can
out of
give-
me.
None of us can give blood.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Well, it's a good cause. It will be held, I'm sure we'll be making more announcements. It's in June, Friday the 6th, from 4 to 8, a blood drive here in Town Hall. So please come. Thank you. Resolution, I think we have to go into executive session, do we, to discuss this, or are we ready to hire?
Unless there's an issue, I think.
No issue. Resolution 2014-233, hiring the zoning administrator. There's one issue with this. May I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second.
Second.
This has we have in our budget 12 hours. I believe that it's not sufficient. Our current interim zoning administrator believes that 12 hours a week is not sufficient, and the recommended candidate is also concerned about 12 hours a week. I have put in here 20 hours a week. We have saved more than that this year by having a volunteer interim zoning administrator, and I think that we could at least use the rest of this year to use those extra times to get this person up to speed and assess at budget time to see where we are. We won't go over budget with these extra hours, and I think that they're sorely needed.
This is for the zoning enforcement officer?
Yes, the civil service title is zoning administrator, and it's contingent upon this person meeting the civil service requirements being approved by civil service. So you could say zoning administrator, or our code says zoning enforcement officer.
Is it possible to say up to 20 hours as opposed, because I think if you appoint her for 20 hours, she's going to use 20 hours. It may be less, I don't know, but...
I would. I mean, I really believe we've been understaffed in this area, if Michael would like to speak to it. Another thing is that the planning board, it was a past practice, and the village does it, and most other towns do, have the zoning administrator attend planning board meetings since the ZBA meetings, since the, that position is the gatekeeper for the code.
Not sure why that's necessary. The zoning enforcement officer will hear what was the variance that were granted or not granted.
Actually,
I don't know why they have
perhaps
to set a
I can
meeting.
speak to that. Anything that goes before the ZBA first started with the zoning enforcement officer. And so it's very helpful. I've been told by the ZBA, I've been going to their meetings, that it's extremely helpful for them to have me there to explain why they're having certain things on their agenda, certain use or area variances. It's also been extremely helpful because the planning board and the ZBA coordinate seeker together. The planning board and the ZBA have agreed that the planning board, if it's involved in a project that requires variances, the planning board will do seeker. And therefore, the ZEO functions as a liaison between the two to make sure that the ZBA knows what type of seeker determination, what type of seeker study is going to be required, and when the seeker process is finished, because they can't act until seeker is completed any more than the planning board can act. And as far as the hours are concerned, I've been putting in about 20 to 25, and if you drive around town, you'll see a lot of things aren't getting done. There are a lot of illegal signs around, which should be addressed, but just the paperwork, the effort to do that for each of those different signs takes a lot of time. And just driving around in the truck and throwing them in the back of the truck could have other certain ramifications. It's basically, the ZEO is also required to issue a certificate of use. For example, I'm supposed to go out to the gardens this week and inspect all the different units they've just currently completed to make sure that they meet all the site plan requirements before a certificate of occupancy can be issued. So the ZEO, under a new zoning law, does a great deal more than the ZEO used to do. And there are a lot more demands of what people would like to see happen. So I don't think 20 hours is unreasonable. I think the money is in there now. If it turns out this person is really super, and I'm sure almost anyone could do it better than I can, she may be able to do it in a shorter time than I can do it. That's something you could assess at the end of the year, but it's not going to cost you anything, and it's going to take her a while to get up to speed. She's got to do our zoning law, our wetland law, our consistency law. I mean, she has a lot of things that she is going to be responsible for knowing, because when someone asks a question, she's the one with the answer. She's the only one legally authorized to interpret and to answer those questions. And it's going to be quite a learning curve, no matter how qualified the person is. Our zoning law and our other regulations are not simple. For good reason, and I think that the intent is good, but you have to have someone able to administer them properly and enforce them properly for them to be effective.
Thank you.
I know,
I'm also going to just mention that I think the planning board currently has about 12 cases in front of you right now with all public, and the zoning board of review has about a dozen, all with public hearings. It seems to be a very busy time, but go ahead.
I just wanted to say my concern is really with budget creep, that we're coming up to budget season. There will be an issue for this board about the tax cap and whether we stay within it. So I am concerned about adding expense. On the other hand, I understand that it is busy, it is a new person. I would just like it presented in a way that it's not written in stone, that that's a 20-hour-a-week job. If she needs more time to break in, yeah.
I'm standing firm on this, and you guys can vote on it. I believe we're very understaffed, and the village hired a zoning enforcement officer for how many hours a week?
I don't remember exactly.
I think 16 hours a week with about a quarter of the parcels that we have, a third of the parcels.
There are different issues also. There's also an issue of fairness. Very often, the only people who are having enforcement actions brought against them are people who someone has complained about them, or you just happen to see it. But we all know, for every one legal apartment in the town of Rhinebeck, there are God knows how many that have been put in illegally, and no one knows about them until the appraisers come to us because the person wants to sell the house and wonders why our assessor shows a single-family house, but the person has had ads out for 4 apartments for rent. So there's an element of fairness here right now. In the 12 hours a week, you're not going to be able to fairly administer this law. And I think that's very important. People have to feel that they're being fairly treated, that it's just not whoever comes to the top of the list first gets it, then the 12 hours are up, so someone else is going to be able to go scot-free. It becomes an important thing. We're dealing with people's properties, with their homes, probably their greatest investment, and they have to feel that they're all being treated equally and fairly.
I'd also like to state that we've spent how much, writing our comprehensive plan, and this is really making sure that it's carried out correctly. So I'm standing behind this, and, we'll see what happens at budget time. We also have to, provide the right services to the town, and I wouldn't want to underserve in this area. Any further discussion? Does anybody want to make an amendment to this resolution?
I'll go with the 20 hours, but hopefully it can be presented in a way that it's not locked in forever. It may be that Michael is right, that it's a 20-hour a week, but at least I feel I have a responsibility to the taxpayers also when people say that they really have to move to North Carolina because taxes are high, they can't afford it. People are grieving downstairs now, so it's a balance. It's truly a balance.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We will be offering the job to Laura Wadowitz, who is a retired planner from the city and town of Poughkeepsie, for $26 an hour for 20 hours a week, and we'll see how it goes. It's also dependent upon her getting the approval of civil service. So thank you very much.
Elizabeth, you're going to talk to her and to the next one to say they're hired and when they can start?
Yes. So Michael.
And we have to thank Michael for serving
Michael,
on
thank you for the many months. You're not quite off the hook. There's going to be don't leave us yet. There's a transition period. I really appreciate it. Yes. This is someone who's very knowledgeable about zoning law and our LWRP, and she was impressive in her knowledge. So we've all met her. It's unanimous. Michael's met her. I'm hoping that this is a good thing. So thank you for helping us out, Michael.
Your idea of fun is strange.
Resolution 2014-234, hiring a zoning secretary. May I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
This motion is to hire Lee Reynolds Mueller for $12 an hour to work 20 hours a week as the secretary to the Zoning Board of Appeals and to help out in the building department. I'll just say that we all met with her. The chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals has met with her. We included him in our interviewing, and Joe spearheaded the interviews. Thank you very much. And I think she's impressive and excited to work with us. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. We've gone through our resolutions. We have a couple of discussion items. Joe, why don't you take us, we'll take them in order. The cell phone tower, we have an inquiry. He's appeared before us from Homeland, isn't it Homeland Cell Towers?
Yeah, I think that's the name of the company.
And Joe has met with him in order to proceed with the planning board for application and site review. They require a non-binding or at least a meeting of the minds in terms of a standard contract. So we've been discussing that. This would be contingent on all town approvals. It doesn't supersede it. It just lays out our financial gain.
I met with the representative of the cell phone tower company just to see if we were in the same ballpark in terms of financial terms. I got some concessions from him with respect to the financial terms. What I don't know, and he's supposed to send me some agreements he has with other towns, but I think it behooves us if we can find some other towns that have cell phones where it's on town land to see what the compensation. I think, Elizabeth, you said you were going to ask the mayor as to his contract.
Ed sent through the other contracts today, and I looked at them. There were 2 from Connecticut, or yesterday. He did send a couple. I'll send out an email to the Association of Supervisors. And,
okay, that would be good, and if we can ask the village. They initially proposed a 55-year contract with a 3% annual escalation and monthly rent of $1,200. Now they are up to the greater of $1,700 a month, or 20% of gross rents, but you can't really count on that. They're willing, I'm sorry, I'm reading the old proposal. The new proposal is $1,850 a month and 25% of gross rents. They're willing to cut the term down to 35 years from 55 years, still a 3% annual escalation, and they've increased the amount that they will pay us during the option period. The option period is for 36 months, so they don't hit the monthly rental till they actually build, and all they're paying is the option price to decide whether they want to put the tower there and to get all the approvals that they need from the planning board. But they would pay us $1,500 for 24 months and $1,000 for a second 12 months. And they'll pay $1,000 for the town attorney to review the lease. The thing where I'm not sure we're in the same ballpark is environmental warranties. They know that it's a transfer station property, and it may be tricky with respect to hazardous substance and what they want from us. They know that we take in electrical components, batteries there. They're, if we go forward, they'll send a revised draft of the environmental warranties. So where we are is they're waiting to hear from us as to whether we're in the same ballpark on financial terms. Then if they are, they'll send a revised contract, which we can look at it, get it into a shape that looks good, and then pass it by the town attorney. So I would propose to tell them that we're looking over the contracts that he sent. We're trying to find out information on other municipalities as to what their financial return is, and we'll be back to him shortly.
Yep. When I talk to the mayor, and I'll send out an email to the other Dutchess County supervisors. I talked to John Lyons about it briefly, and he has done a ton of these contracts. He had some points. You may want to talk to him. He had points about co-leasing and escalations and things that are maybe a little bit more nuanced that could bring us more revenue. So is there any further discussion on this? Or?
No, that's...
Joe, thanks for doing it, and I think we're on the right track. I'll forward the information to you. Any questions from the public on this? Or Our next discussion item is Rhinecliff Sewer and Stormwater remediation. Again, I'll just reiterate, Elaine asked that we respectfully table this. I think this is really, we don't have to close this discussion. We don't need to take action. She was sorry she couldn't be here to be involved in this. I see a couple of Rhinecliffers in the audience. I think this is really, the town board is wondering, what are we thinking? I'll just let you and the public know that I have been doing some, due diligence with the Department of Health and the DEC in Millbrook, just because we keep saying there are things on the record, and I'm seeing exactly what's on the record. I'm playing phone tag now with the head of the division in Millbrook. I was at budget school at the end of last week, so I'm hoping to connect with her next week, but there seem to be, several dozen houses that are in peril. I think the public's been pretty vocal about not wanting a centralized sewer district. I don't think that's on the table, but if there's this grant available and we can help the 30, 20, 15, however it ends up being, houses that are in trouble with some standalone units or something, I'm in favor of it. I don't know what everyone's thinking. And the other thing that I just wanted to mention for the public is, there's the septic issue and the stormwater issue. Kathy Kinsella wasn't able to come tonight either, but I've spoken to her about this. She said publicly many times she is happy to work on this, but there's nothing more she can do with stormwater drainage remediation without an engineering plan. So she's reached her limit on it, and Rhinecliff is only one area in Rhinebeck that has issues with stormwater problems. So we have to address the town as a whole. This grant would be to concentrate on Rhinecliff in the stormwater area. So Kathy said publicly that she's, without an engineering plan, she's gone as far as she can go. And I'm saying, I believe without additional funding, we've done quite a bit in Rhinecliff. There are other areas in the town that we have to look at. So that's all I have to say. I'm interested in the idea of a grant for helping the houses that may be in trouble. I've heard the public. I get the not wanting to create a sewer district and a centralized sewer system. I don't know what everyone else is thinking. I think, Elaine would like to be involved in this discussion. We could certainly bring it up again. I don't know where Victor is in the grant application, and we can certainly ask, Kathy Duquette or Nancy Clark to come and speak about any, out-of-the-box solutions they may know for helping a handful of houses, not a district.
Well, what concerns me is just running up costs if we're not going to do anything.
Running up costs?
Because we're paying Victor $4,000 already. He gets another either 7 or something, and then Kathy Duquette gets something. So if the project is not going to go forward, there's just no sense of running up cost. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think, like you, the sewage plant makes sense, and I don't think we can address the sewage. I would be very surprised if you can get a grant to solve 35 homes' sewage problems. So I think, if anything, we should focus on stormwater. Now, even with that, I heard people in the audience say, look, if you're going to start digging sewers in the street, you're going to weaken foundations of the...
Sewers or drainage?
Drainage, but it's a sewer also. You got to put sewer pipes in the street. And so when I say sewer, I mean drainage,
well, it's
stormwater.
Okay, it's two separate things, though. They don't...
Yes, at least in my mind, I think sewers, sanitary sewers, are just not for us, that the community is too divided. I think it would require a special sewer district. I think it would require construction of a sewer plant, and for a number of reasons, doesn't seem to me to make sense. So I think the focus, if we want to go ahead, should be stormwater. And even that, I'm not sure we want to go ahead. And I guess I'd like to explore sooner rather than later whether there are risks there for homeowners, and not let the project go on and on where we're running up money and then we're going to decide, hey, we're not going to do it.
Well, I think that's why you need an engineering study.
That may be, and maybe we need the engineers and Victor to come again to see what we can do in terms of a grant, and at least they said engineering costs could be part of the grant. Maybe the way we proceed is to not keep funding this, but let them do what they can in terms of seeing if they can get into the second round, and then working from existing stuff without running up a big bill for the town for engineering. But, you know, I think maybe a meeting with Victor and, Nancy Clark would be useful sooner rather than later.
Where I am with this is, it sounds like everybody's on their own for the sewer part of the thing. As far as the water goes, it sounds to me like it's mostly groundwater, and it's something you have to go up into Creed's property or somebody's property to deal with, rather than after the fact catching it after it's run through everybody's house. And I don't know how you would even go about that.
Well, that's why you have to have an engineering study.
Well, yeah, but...
You sound like a broken record, but, you know, none of us really understand the topography and the geology and all the rest of that stuff.
Yeah, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying, if we're going to do something that says, okay, you can have a stream through your house, and then we're going to put a pipe in the road to catch your stream and run it into the river, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
Well, then nobody has sense would propose it.
Well, that's kind of what's kind of been on the table as far as I could tell. So.
Well, okay.
I don't know.
And I think when Erdman presented to us 2 years ago about stormwater, they were talking about, you know, mapping out up there and starting further up. I think what we're talking about is, do we want to proceed? Elaine has asked us to consider. She would like to participate in this.
Yes.
She's a very, you know, dedicated to the
She lives there.
hamlet. Yeah. So I think we can bring it up again. I think we can talk to, you know, Victor about not spending any more money on him and seeing where he goes. You know, if we don't have a clear vision, we shouldn't spend our money, and we should see where we are on an engineering, at least getting a grant for an engineering study. I see some Rhine Cliffers in the audience. Would anybody like to, any new comments, or come on up?
Drinks bottled water here.
Hi, my name's John D. Noter. I'm at 55 Grinnell. I've been here about 13 years. In my younger days, I was in construction and dug out foundations and so forth. And this is my second house from the 1800s period, late 1800s period. And I see my neighbors complain and complain and complain. I have part of my foundation dug out. There's not one drop of mortar. It's just a pile of stones in the ground. It's just pointed in the basement a little bit. So these issues are issues that are redundant to cheaply constructed houses from the 1800s period. They're always going to leak. You got to put some pumps, or you got to cure them. You got to dig them out. You got to properly, you know, waterproof the foundation. A lot of these houses, if you notice, are below the street. They're sitting in a hole. It doesn't even have to be the rain from coming down the hill. Whatever falls on the man's property sits in his yard. Is that the town's responsibility to put a sewer in somebody's backyard, bring that water out under the street and dispose of it? I'm curious about that. Because a lot of houses are trapped between, a hill, a road, and they're below grade. They bought the houses like that. They bought them cheap. They were cheaply constructed, or the issues have been there for hundreds of years. And is it really the town's responsibility to cure that? That's my question. Because everybody wants their thing fixed at somebody else's expense. There's another issue which is outright criminal, and it happened in a neighborhood I lived in, where people put their sewage directly into the storm drain. This is criminal. And what they did in my other neighborhood is they put a bladder plastic pipe through the storm drain, and they inflate it, and it relines the old pipes. 4 houses at the end of the block flooded. Obviously, the contractors, when they built a house, they made no attempt to put in a sewer system, because the sewer system would have to be pumped up to the street. So the cheap fix was to put it in the storm drain, which was down where it was convenient. So if we're really, really concerned, I think everybody's on their own. I have 4 or 5 immediate neighbors, and they've all had work done on their septic. One gentleman dug a pit you wouldn't believe and lined it and went to great expense. People need to be held responsible for their own sewer systems. And perhaps if it does become a real problem, we need to do dye tests. And people need to be served documents. They need to cure it in a year. If somebody's doing something wrong, they need to be served papers. It needs to be cured. If it's not cured in another town, you could lose your C of O and be asked to get out of the building. Now, I don't want to put hardship on anybody, but a lot of these people screaming for all of this to be done, they know that the problem is their problem, and they should take care of it. And I don't mean to make anybody a criminal. I don't mean to put anybody out of their house, but it is handled differently in other cities and towns. It is put on the homeowner.
Thank you. Yeah, I just also want to state, people aren't screaming. It's a potential grant that we could get, so we're deciding.
I think it's a Trojan horse.
Okay, thank you.
Federal money, you have to comply to all sorts of things, and they will follow up on it.
Thank you.
I'm Wendell Smith. I live on James Street in Rhinecliff. And I will echo what I just heard here. However, I want to say the couple of things. First of all, I said this at the last meeting. My septic went bad, so I hired somebody to come in and fix it, and they fixed it proper. So you put your money into it. We know there are 1 or 2 people that own an awful lot of real estate in that one patch, and all their real estate's in trouble because they bought cheap stuff, and we know what it is, and they're looking for you to fix it, and that's wrong. That is wrong. If they're speculators, and they are, then they should take care of their problems. Now, I did have water coming in my foundation because my house is 1850 and it's stone. You know what I did? I had it foamed. End of story. No more water. It's fixed. Cost me $3,000 to foam it, but I put my money where my mouth is, and I'm not rich. I'm a hurting guy. However, I'm responsible, and I don't think we should bear the weight of other people. I don't think that's proper. Now, I do know, and I have this keen sense of developing a grant creates a bigger monster, and then once you get the government involved in something, we're basically screwed. Now we're going to get the guys from whatever department that decide to tell us what to do. I think that's inappropriate, and then it's a bigger ball of wax than what is being made clear here right now. So we got to keep this transparent, we got to keep it open, and it has to be a much larger forum for this to be dealt with fairly properly so that everybody is heard, and then probably even brought whatever you do with a vote to bring this thing to the public so that we get a bigger idea of what's happening. And I heard somebody say in the last meeting, which I thought was very appropriate, I don't think this should end up becoming, if it is something that's foolishly brought into a grant and then stuck with a sewer plant, that we end up paying not the $1 million grant is absolute fallacy. We're going to end up paying $40 or $50 million for that, and we all know it. I think then all of Rhinebeck should share that cost and not just Rhinecliff. It should be shared by the entire town of Rhinebeck. Just split the cost amongst everybody, right across the board, not some local thing. That's what I have to say.
Thank you.
Hi, Andrew Shepard from Rhinecliff. Just two things. One is that this really isn't the purview of the town board. This is the county's health department's responsibility. They handle wastewater. And they're...
Wastewater or sewage?
Same thing. Yeah.
Well, there's two. Stormwater?
Right. No, but the one issue in terms of people's septics and stuff.
So you're talking about sewage now?
Yeah, it's their responsibility to deal with that. The other thing is, from what people said at the last meeting about water going through the basement, what occurred to me and also to my friend Matt is don't give people mistaken hope. There are many people in Rhinecliff where water is coming through their basement. It's not storm water. It's water that goes through after a month of no rain. There's still water going through there. And nothing you do is ever going to fix that. Your responsibility is for what's washing on the roads, and that's pretty much it. The issue is not, for most people, stormwater. It's that constant water that's flowing through, and it's, I bought a house that's got wet basement, and that's, my responsibility and my problem. They don't offer them false hope that you're going to be fixing this situation.
Yeah, we're talking about stormwater on the streets. We're not talking about creating a community of dry basements, but I think we hear you.
Right, but that's when people in Rhinecliff complain about water, most of what they're talking about is what's constantly there. And the truth is, if you do start digging it, you're going to be shifting where that water goes underground, because it's all through fractures in the rock. So you may take... one person might benefit, one person might find that they have water coming in their basement because of what you did. It's a very tricky situation.
Thank you.
I must say, I'm not sure that the problem is runoff from the street.
I just want to be clear. The highway department did a lot of work with stormwater runoff. They put in some new catch basins, some new culverts. The only thing that I'm talking about is Kathy said she's done in Rhinecliff without further engineering. So I just want to be clear about that one aspect. We're talking about there were areas that flooded terribly in the summer, that froze, patches of ice rinks and little at junctions. Junctures, that's what we're talking about there. But I hear you.
Hi, my name's Steve Hutkins from Rhinecliff. I spoke at the last meeting at length, so I'm not going to repeat everything I said back then. But before I say anything, I just want to say I'm glad that you're paying attention to our historic post office. I'm not sure if you know this, but historic post offices across the country are being sold, just like the one we have here. I run a website called SaveThePostOffice.com, which is about fighting to prevent the sale to post offices. And we have one of the most special post offices in the country right here. So it's great that you're doing that. With regard to the stormwater and the wastewater problems, such as they are in Rhinecliff, I'm a little confused about where you all are in the process, because it was my understanding that you voted in November, the board did, just two of you, but the board voted in November to authorize Mr. Cornelius to proceed with the grant process, and now I'm pleased to see that you're continuing to discuss that, but it seemed that the board had already authorized him to proceed. So it would be helpful if you could clarify where you are.
I think it's a multi-stage process with Victor. We gave him a very little amount of money to do the first part of the grant, and we don't have to go on to the second stage if we don't want to. Is that accurate, Joe?
I think so. My understanding of the process is that you submit a letter of intent to the state, but it's ultimately federal money. And then they'll tell you whether they would consider a formal proposal. And then if you make it to the second round, you'd submit a formal proposal with some engineering and a sum of money request. At this point, they haven't even issued the call for the first stage, which is the letter of intent.
First stage that was due in December or November.
Due in December. So nothing has been filed anywhere.
But that's because the state hasn't
The feds and the
announced
state, yeah.
Yes.
So is it your understanding, though, that when they make that announcement, he is going to proceed because you've so authorized him to do so?
Well, he could, but
Unless we turn him off.
Unless we say no. And that would only be stage one, where we're not paying him that much money, and we could choose to opt out.
So is the board considering another resolution that would basically undo the November resolution and put a stop to this?
No, I think we want to hear from the public. That's what we're here for.
We're not making a decision tonight.
I
Elaine would
understand
like
that.
to be
I
involved in
understand
that.
I'm just trying to get a sense, because it
Of what the
seemed...
process would be, we could
Well,
decide not to go any farther.
Well, the reason I ask is that I wasn't paying much attention, I have to admit, until recently. And then I went back and looked at the video of the November meeting. And it seemed at that point, I couldn't tell if there had been discussions prior to that November meeting, but it seemed from, correct me if I'm wrong, that was the first time that the board had discussed this, heard from Mr. Cornelius, heard from 3 members of the Rhinecliff community, and then voted, although one of you suggested that we should wait, you should wait, on authorizing Mr. Cornelius to proceed. Now, if there are things that happened before that...
Yeah, I'm just going to
correct me.
clarify. This was the first time that board had discussed this grant, but 2 years before that, I think when I was first elected on the board, there was an issue before us. We put out an RFP for stormwater drainage. We had Chazen, was it? Erdman. We had 2 years before that, we had dealt with this on a little...
Stormwater.
Stormwater. Where sewage came up, if you look at stormwater, you're going to have to deal with sewage. So we had gone through a preliminary study of that. That's why Victor came back to us, because he had been involved 2.5 years ago when we looked at it a little deeper, and we pulled the plug on that because of the lack of just a community input and the funding it would take. He came back to us and said, hey, remember that thing we were talking about 2 years ago? There's some funding available. Would you like to look at it again? So
That's all fine. What I'm talking about is the fact that in November, you voted, the board voted to authorize someone to write a grant for
Yes.
a stormwater and wastewater system in Rhinecliff. And according to Mr. Cornelius at the last meeting, go for the biggest one that you can. He wasn't talking about...
Cornelius.
Mr. Cornelius said, let's go for the biggest one that we can, not some small thing like you're talking about now. Without talking to the people in Rhinecliff, the board voted to authorize him to proceed to submit such a grant. Well, that seems to me very problematic. I've done a little bit of research in what the proper procedures are if a town is interested in pursuing this path. And it begins with identifying the scope of the problem, considering what the impacts of the proposed solutions would be on land use policies. A whole public participation process should be initiated. Way, way, way down the road, you start talking about seeking funding. This board started the process by seeking funding. And then, presumably, if the money would have come in, you would have come to Rhinecliff and say, well, how can you say no to all this money when there wasn't even a discussion with the community about what the problem was?
I think it's a slight, I understand how you're seeing it that way. We were presented with an opportunity to get
That's
funding.
fine. You were presented with an opportunity and you wanted to act.
Excuse me, let me finish. We're well aware of the procedure, and the procedure would have been...
I'm not so sure that the board is well aware of the procedures, because it doesn't start with applying for a grant.
There was an opportunity to pursue funding that we looked at. Is it worth it? We may decide not to do it. There doesn't seem to be any community buy-in, and unfortunately, as it was presented to us, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a once-in-a-generation opportunity.
Look, we understand your point. There's it's silly to argue with us. We understand what you're saying.
It's silly to argue with you. You have Rhinecliff very upset right now about the fact that the board has decided to proceed with this without talking to us about it.
I think this is our third or fourth public.
You call this a public meeting about Rhinecliff?
Excuse me, order please. We're totally willing to hear the public. We're going to hold this over. Elaine would like to participate. We're noticing the meetings, we're inviting people, we've gone door to doors with flyers. Nothing has been decided, it's a discussion. And we're willing to discuss it as long as we need to, or table it. So I don't think you have a board here that's fighting with you. We're looking at a potential problem, seeing if we could solve it, or if we even want to address it. So I think we're agreeing with you.
I could also appreciate some clarification on the issue of Kathy saying that she's done all she can in Rhinecliff without an engineering report. I'm not quite clear what that means. Was the grant about supporting this engineering report, or is the town talking about funding an engineering report itself? Because I'm hearing that, correct me, as we're not going to fix anything in Rhinecliff until we apply for this grant and do an engineering report.
I'll clarify this one more time. I wish Kathy were here. The Highway Department has been very proactive in fixing stormwater runoff in Rhinecliff. There were several areas that were, as I said, pooling, freezing, puddling. Kathy and her crew very proactively put in drainage, culverts. She cannot do any more without a plan, and she stated that publicly, and I've spoken to her recently, and she's reiterated to me, and if she were here, I hope she'd get up and say this, but what she has said that without a plan, because they're not engineers, there's nothing more they can do proactively. They would need a plan to deal with any more issues in Rhinecliff.
Because they don't know what.
They don't know. They're not.
So is the board thinking about allocating funds to develop such an engineering report, or are you talking about using this as a justification for proceeding with the grant?
We had looked at it 2.5 years ago and got much the same reaction then when we were looking at putting the funds in, that no, we didn't want to do it, it would cost too much money. So when this grant came up, we opened it up again. I don't know that we have any, I don't know what we're going to do.
We don't have a grand plan, so you're asking questions that you ought to ask frankly, to a fortune teller. We don't know. We haven't discussed whether we would fund an engineering study ourselves. This was one possibility. That's why we're calling it to open it. You heard, I think, what I said, that I think we ought to decide sooner rather than later. But I think we're taking a responsible process. We had a lot of people here at a previous meeting. We are going to discuss it in future board meetings. We can call Victor Cornelius off anytime we want.
We can involve our consulting engineers and get their opinion, or we can close it if the community doesn't want it. You know, we're trying to be responsive, so.
Okay. It's just we're getting, it's kind of like, I'm hearing things like, how many communists are there in the, like when you say how many houses might be in violation? Well, one second you said several dozen, which sounds very bad, and then a few seconds later you say, it's just a handful. So, things are being thrown around about like what's going on over in Rhinecliff.
Nobody knows what's going on in Rhinecliff, and without more study, we can talk about it. It's like throwing darts in the dark. We can hire an engineering firm who can come in and look at it, or if the community doesn't want to, we don't have to. I don't know how else to decide other than to discuss it in public and get input. But, I don't know. Gentlemen, any other comments? If you could approach the microphone.
I'm sure I've said more than enough, so I'll
Thank
stop.
you.
Thanks.
Hi, John Denoter again. An older neighbor of mine told me that not so long ago there was a survey done, and he said it was about 17 houses. This is what he instructed me, an older gentleman in the neighborhood. and some of them have already been repaired. The hotel and quite a few of them. I think maybe it's a dozen houses now, but I'm not a professional. But he said when they did that dye test years ago, it was 17 houses. A lot of them have been upgraded already. The other issue with the storm drains, I have to mention about Kathy Casella. She's done a great job.
Fantastic.
Fantastic job. There was a collapsed storm drain up on James Street, and a couple of years back they cleared that. That was making an issue onto several
Put a
people's
culvert in,
property.
yeah.
And it was draining a little bit of a swamp. It wasn't even rainwater. It was just something constant. And then on Butler around the corner, there was a low spot in Butler, and that was all new. That was a new storm drain. She obtained permission from Ronald Van Etten to go to his property to discharge it over the hill. So she's done a good job. I think she should just continue what she's doing. Where there is a problem, you fix it. I don't think there's that many problems in Rhinecliff. I mean, if it rains 4 inches in 3 hours, I mean, turn on your news. Highways are flooding. Everything's flooding. Nothing handles that amount of downpour.
Thank you.
I think the problem's exaggerated.
Okay, I'd like to move on if anybody.
Bruce remembers we used to have these great meetings in Rhinecliff once a year. Was it once a year or twice a year? Twice a year. And I don't know who discontinued that, but I think it would be advisable to see if the library's available or the firehouse and have a meeting down there, have plenty of notice, and then we can hash it out.
Thank you. Any other comments, guys? Moving on. I was going to update everybody on the budget process and some state mandates. I just got back from school in Saratoga, Office of the State Controller. I'm still taking notes. Shelley and I went. There are a lot of new and exciting state mandates coming up that we'll have to comply with. But the thing that, looking forward that we're going to have to see in budget session is the state is having a tax cap tied to an incentive for our STAR recipients. We will have to comply with the budget cap for 2 years and come up with a 3-year consolidation savings plan. So we will have to consolidate or share services and save the town as much money as our cap, more with a formula, in order for our STAR exempt residents to get a check back from the state. Based on the number, I think we have about 1,700 STAR residents in the town and village in the town of Rhinebeck. I believe the Association of Towns representative who was giving the seminar said our residents could look for about a $30 check. So we're going to have an excruciating budget session. We're going to stay within if we decide to stay within the tax cap, it'll be about 1.45. We'll need to do it for 2015, 2016, and have a 3-year plan in place. They're looking to consolidate governments, taxation districts, fire departments, lighting districts, sewer districts, libraries, whatever they can consolidate. Yeah, they would like to see less. I think, there are 30 taxing municipalities in the county, 2 cities, 8 villages, 20 towns, but about 360 taxing, school districts, anybody who can levy a tax. So the governor and the state is really pushing to streamline that. That's what we're going to be looking at. I'll continue on writing up my notes and try and present them all to you in your boxes, and we can talk about them at our next meeting. But it was certainly good to attend, and Shelley went with me, and that was helpful, so thank you for sending us.
Elizabeth, my understanding is on the sufficiency that they would take into consideration, I don't know if there's guidelines yet, past deficiencies, such as we're doing the assessment for the village.
I don't think so. I think it has to be within a year. Villages don't assess anyway, so.
Okay, but there are things that we do for the village, so I think
We have some savings already.
Yeah, right, but I don't know if guidelines have come out with respect to
You're
past
right. I don't know if the efficiency and consolidation plan has teeth. We're not sure yet. We might just be able to say, here's our plan, and if we don't adhere to it, our taxpayers have already gotten their check. I don't know. We don't know yet what comes after that. We don't know if they say, okay, now give it back to us, or, it's gone. So that remains to be seen, but you're right.
Right, and past efficiency.
Yeah.
I'm confused.
So am I.
It's not the 1,700 star getting 30 or 40 bucks. It's the 3,800 parcels not getting a tax increase.
Well, there's that. We have to adhere to our tax cap, which we've been doing in the town.
But that's the real benefit and the real purpose of this.
It's also, some believe, a PR ploy on the state too, and a push to help consolidate taxing entities.
Well, if to contain taxes, you have to consolidate and share, then that makes sense.
Yes.
But if you have but the purpose is to contain taxes.
Yes, they're also, Bruce, yes, it's positive, but what's killing us and what we talked about as supervisors and mayors in the county is the unfunded state mandates that come along with this. It's like you're a part-time government, not only stick to your tax cap, but now come up with a plan for 3 years, write a plan, or, and jump through these other 4 hoops. It's like we're cutting your sales tax, but we're going to let you participate in this shared service grant, which is going to take you, 100 hours to write, and instead of just giving you the money and letting you spend it, we're going to make you jump through more hoops. But, you're right. It's something we have to look at for keeping it affordable.
Is there a list of unfunded mandates?
A list, we're compiling things. Yeah, it's all over the place.
Is this the supervisors and mayors?
And the Association of Towns. There's the Associations of Towns, and I forget what the other one is called for the villages. There's a, do you know what that's called? People are working on it.
I mean, I could see mandates like with fire company. I know there's some of those, and I know with the school there's some of those. I haven't run into a whole lot of mandates at the local level. That's why I'm asking.
I'll get some.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they had, at least the county had something where we had to pay for election. They pushed that down us, and then it went away.
But that wasn't a state mandate.
No, but it was a county mandate.
Right,
It's the
and that was
same thing,
discretionary.
and they weren't giving us the money for it.
Motion to adjourn.
More to come. We actually have there's one more thing, and then I'm sorry, we have an executive session. Oh, nice, Serta, we can table that. If you'd like to, Elaine's been working on it. She did give us notes.
Is this what Elaine did?
I'd rather wait. It is due soon. The only thing that, it seems to, I don't think it is liquid propane. I think it's natural gas. Is that true?
Well, it could be either one.
No, I don't think so.
Why couldn't it be either one?
Well, because liquid propane is a petroleum-based.
That's what they're giving us, but that's what they're giving us the grant for. They're
To go to natural gas.
Yeah.
So we don't have natural gas here.
But Bruce is going to, at the next meeting, and hope, again, I would urge that we have a interim meeting, because the winter will come soon, and we got a lot of work on the heating, so we got to know where we're going.
As soon as we have information, we can talk about it. I don't think we have anything to talk about yet.
No, not today, but
I've asked Bobby to get the different vendors to come in and give us a brief technical overview of their approaches.
And you have someone you're working with, Alan, too? That
Yeah,
guy
but
on
he's
the-
just common sense.
But you got to coordinate that through Bobby.
Yeah, I think, get your common sense guy in. I mean, can we even consider an LP system here? Do we have room to bury a tank? I believe a
You don't
tank
need
has.
to bury LP.
I thought you did.
You can, but you don't have to.
What do you do with it?
Put it where the oil tank is.
I don't think so. Can you?
Yeah, you could.
1,000 gallons.
Excuse me. There's propane tanks above ground everywhere in the town.
Okay,
I
so.
mean, they're usually this big. You see them next to houses everywhere. you know.
Have them at the sewer plants, at our 2 sewer plants.
Yeah.
Right, so, I mean,
But I'm wondering, Bruce, as soon as Bobby has gathered it, maybe we ought to have a special meeting with the contractors, because I know Bobby Fitzpatrick is getting very nervous that he's not going to have anything installed when the winter comes. And he's dubious as to whether we're going to make it through another winter. And we ought to come up with a plan. So maybe, you know, and now we're going to wait till, what, the next meeting is?
well, we don't have anything to
June.
talk
No,
about.
no, what I'm
yeah.
saying is maybe Bruce can do it, and we have a special meeting as soon as Bruce has, and Bobby have proposals.
May 27th or June 9th, right? So it's
No, there's no May 27th meeting.
right, but
June 9th.
we're skipping until June 9th.
Right.
You want to have a meeting in the, somewhere else on May 27th? No?
I would, or a special meeting during the day.
Yeah,
As soon as we have
But I think
something to talk about with regards to
Yeah,
this, we'll
right.
schedule something. We don't have anything yet. But we have this possible NYSERDA grant, but I'm just confused. It seems to be based on natural gas. Is that true?
I'll talk to Elaine and.
Okay, and she'll bring us up to
Straighten that out.
date when she comes.
'Cause I thought propane was virtually equivalent.
One is petroleum-based and one isn't, is that correct? Okay, I would like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss the employment history of a specific person and a matter of public safety.
Okay.
Motion?
Moved.
Second?
Second.
I don't believe we will be taking any action, so we can